Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering, as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today, I'm delighted to welcome special guest Aaron Scott, who's here today to talk about a lot of things, but we're going to start off with The Truth Lies Within. And Scott and Aaron and I have already acknowledged to each other before we even start recording that this is one of those topics that is infinite. So the hardest part today will be actually ending the conversation because it's going to be really interesting. So Aaron is the host of the Evolved podcast, a show that guides listeners through the unraveling of illusion, be it spiritual, economic, political, or personal, and into the depths of clarity and alignment. And his new book, The Architecture of Awakening, Rebuilding Consciousness in a Complex World, is releasing imminently. It may or may not have been released at the point of airing this episode. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell people where to find you at theaaronscott.com. So that's TheAaronscott. So our theme today, The Truth Lies Within. I think everyone's heard that idea, but no one can remember when they first heard that idea or when that idea actually first penetrated and became anything more meaningful than a bumper sticker. So can you remember the first time you really connected with the realization that the truth lies within?
Sure. Again, it's certainly an all-encompassing phrase, if you will, right? And I think the value of the phrase maybe lies in context, and maybe how I'll frame this is kind of in speaking to how I look at this phrase, if you will, this idea in the context of kind of what I'm working on and kind of what my journey is. I think that would provide your audience with maybe the most perspective, if you will. So, I think that when one of the biggest, I would say, byproducts of the sort of Western capitalist society, if you will, which is, I speak a lot about the systemic nature of how our societies have been constructed, and the inherent methodology, and whether it was sinister or not, and what the motives were, and things of that nature. And I think that what happens is people, given the underlying infrastructure, given the systems at play here, oftentimes will look to or find identity outside of them. And in doing so, you're sort of jumping into all sorts of illusory constructs, right? All sorts of different ways to see the world, to see themselves. And again, you're walking into many, many illusions, because when your identity is dependent upon the external, in many ways it can be manipulated, and in many ways you're sort of adopting narratives or stories that you were taught or that you inherited, oftentimes without thinking about it. And so, with the truth lying within, I think that, and this is something that I do daily, and it's something that I think should be part of kind of the daily ritual, if you will, is it's important to kind of stop and to try to look internally for answers, perspective to trust intuition and not get so, crazily analytical with, some of these basic ideas, and not get so bogged down with, the performative nature of, um, again, of identity, and of kind of, the ways that we've been indoctrinated to think about value and worth and things of that nature. So, again, kind of looking within is such an important part of just the daily process, because again, otherwise you're you're in this web of illusion, and you don't know, in many ways you don't know, up from down, dark from light. I think that that's something that I think can resonate with people.
Absolutely. So you were obviously very connected to that idea. It's way beyond bumper sticker for you. So
For
how
sure.
how did you get that clarity? Were you born that, when you were born, did they hold you up and go, "Hey, this guy's really clear about looking within," or did it
I
have a little bit
I
like
ca-
that?
I came out and it was written on my umbilical cord. It said, "Look within for truth." So it was a genetic inheritance.
So you're
Um,
part of the new race that's coming forwards for us.
right, exactly, the Arcturian race or whatever. Right. So, no, look, I think that this is something that I've kind of tried to dissect. I will tell you that, um, really my whole life I've been super sensitive, and I've been kind of hyper aware, for better or for worse, right? I elected to study philosophy in university, philosophy and economic theory, always kind of looking for a deeper meaning, a deeper understanding, and always kind of seeing how the world worked, and seeing who the, successful people were, and kind of questioning and saying, why is this the measure of success? Aren't people lacking? And I really felt that way from a really early age, strangely enough. And, part of my journey, and we're all on our respective journeys, although we're also all connected, which we can talk about as well. I, I think that, everyone goes through hardships and trials and tribulations. And I think that because of my background, I've been working on Wall Street for over 2 decades. And because of the nature of my business, and I've had to kind of contort myself to accommodate my profession, if you will, full well knowing consciously that it was not something that I necessarily wanted to do inherently, right? It was a real, um, end justifies the means situation. But always knowing that I was going up, and I was battling myself internally every day, just to sort of fill these shoes, and serve this role, and have this profession um, to be the person, and serve the identity that I was in many ways told that I ought to have, right? So, but in that process, I kind of reached a breaking point recently, I would say, um, maybe 3 years ago or so. Nothing where I was on a mountain and I was talking to spirits, right? But just kind of, an internal realization where I was lacking, and I felt like I had so much to give. I've been doing independent research on a myriad of topics for, you know, uh, 25 years, let's say. And I really feel like we are at a time, especially with social media and, mass communication, that I had a lot of knowledge that I could give, and I had a lot of perspective that I could offer to help, uh, not to sound, you know, cheesy or cheeky, but, humanity at large, because I think that people are feeling and resonating with a lot, or feeling and resonating with a lot of these kind of topics that I discuss. So that's kind of, in a very long-winded way, I guess, kind of the background on myself and my journey.
Yeah, thank you. And that's kind of interesting as I'm thinking that what about the way you just said that thing of the awareness that you had right from quite young. And then for whatever reason, you needed to travel a journey that looked like it wasn't going in that direction for a while. And then more recently, you were sort of tuning into the vibe of how you were perceiving how the world is and where humanity is, and feeling then called to bring it forward. Now, that to me, I think maybe a lot of people listening can resonate with that journey. There's sort of the inherent connection to something, and then, right, now's the time to actually step up to.
Yeah. And look, listen, everybody, a lot of people, I think, kind of coming to awakenings or reaching levels of enlightenment or transcending consciousness, I think that you find that there are a lot of people who have kind of these acute traumatic moments, right? Whether you're on a meditation retreat, or you're partaking in an ayahuasca retreat, or you have kind of like a quote unquote mental breakdown, as it's categorically called, or whatever, and you have to kind of, it's an existential crisis, you have to kind of question everything. And I think that, although I don't necessarily think I had that kind of acute experience, I think that, and I'm really happy that I'm able to do this. I think that with my background and my experience on a very practical level, and understanding systems, understanding capital markets, understanding uh, economic, social, all sorts of the origins of things, I think that I give a really unique perspective, because you don't see, you don't see somebody who founded a hedge fund having these discussions. It's kind of like pushed to the fringe. It's not looked at as obviously, it's not looked at as a mainstream topic, and these aren't mainstream conversations in many ways. But I think that it's I have so much to offer with my background and perspective, and that's really, again, another reason why I am very serious, and am looking to participate and contribute along this path for myself and everyone else.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. We need people doing that. So you actually sort of half answered what my next question was going to be, which was, what was the purpose of those 20 years on Wall Street then? If you were having to battle with yourself, but it sounds like you're saying that gave you some resources that are important now. Is that right?
I think for sure. And I think that, again, it's, through the dark, we find light, for sure. This kind of cliche is true, right? And in many ways, it doesn't make sense. But if you think about it, there's obviously, even from kind of like, just a practical standpoint, it would make no sense. It would be illogical for someone to go through life, have no conflict either internally or externally, and then to be able to grow. You need kind of conflicts and impediments to grow, and even and kind of, in my case, reach higher levels of consciousness and awareness, and be able to formulate those in accessible ways to provide perspective to people. So, it's about kind of embracing those situations. It's not easy, right? It's really difficult. And from a personal perspective, and also, even just, outside of that idea, even just kind of this journey is so hard to grab hold of and stay with, kind of like, I feel like a lot of times I'm like riding this bull, because the paradigm that we live in on this timeline is so rife with almost a programmatic nature of consciousness, where people don't question. There's no real curiosity. They accept these roles, a role that I kind of accepted unconsciously in many ways, and they assume that their education or indoctrination was, divinely ordained. They assume that modern medicine is um, the most beneficial approach to healing. They assume that their religion is giving them what it's supposed to be giving them, and there's this kind of naivete, if you will, but also unconsciousness that is so pervasive, right? So again, this is symptomatic of this reality. And anyway, I don't want to get too off topic, but this is really something that I hone in on, because people need to be looking for meaning. People need to be, they can't just accept things. They should say, look, and many people, I think, are not inherently happy, right? And I think that people are looking for understanding and meaning and perspective, and I'm hoping to provide that for people, not necessarily to bog them down or to be, um, like a Debbie Downer, but to use the tools that I'm giving to reach higher levels of understanding and consciousness. So I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And you say not to be a Debbie Downer. You strike me as a very non-downer personality.
No, but these, yeah, but I appreciate that, you as well. But sometimes these topics, when you're, there's kind of this metaphysical concept where, with respect to illusion, where the truth is unsettling. The truth shakes things up. The truth makes you question or come to realizations of things. You have to break down the scaffolding. It attacks your ego. It attacks really, again, a full infrastructure of your own identity, of your life, right? So the truth hurts. So it's a very, it can be unsettling for people. It certainly was for me. It took time for me to kind of come to terms and find a way to reconstruct or align my life with truth and being a truth teller and giving that perspective. It's not so easy, right?
How long did that transition take, do you feel, for you?
A decade, to be fair, to
Yeah.
fully come to terms with it, for sure. A long time.
Yeah.
A long time.
Hey, well, it could have never happened. So,
That's the optimism.
you know what I mean?
I do.
Someone said to me this morning, life is technology fails and then you die. This person was having a bad day. Luckily,
Apparently.
luckily they also have a sense of humor. But
Sorry.
yeah. So 10
That sounds
years,
like it was, yeah.
they just found out that it was going to cost an enormous amount of money to mend the cooker.
Got it. Okay.
So it was.
So we just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Got it.
That's right. So technology fails and then you die.
Right.
So
Wow.
yeah, so 10 years, yeah. So that's a great reminder, actually, for any of us, because I've had moments in my life when I've realized, right, there's a transition I want to make. And my next thought is, why have I not already done it yesterday? That sort of intense self-flagellating kind of thing of, surely I should have done it already.
Right.
But you're absolutely right.
But-
It takes time.
But tell me, Catherine, I think that this resonates with you. Even the idea of kind of coming, even after let's say saying 10 years, I'm still evolving, right? And I'm sure you are too. It's really, and it's not, again, cliche. It's, you hear kind of, it's the climb. It's not the trophy. It's not making the money, whatever somebody's goal is. It's what it took to get there. And that is the truth, right? We are ever evolving. We are gaining perspective every single day with every interaction, with every article you read, with every book you read, right? So this is in truth a journey. And I am evolving, I am changing, I am reaching new heights. I'm changing the way I look at certain things with different tweaks. So this is, I think, an important perspective to have, and I'm sure that resonates with you.
100%. Yes. It's actually, for me, one of the most enjoyable aspects of life, which is I don't have to stay in the same place all the time. I can keep moving forward. And of course, having conversations with people like you and my other amazing guests is part of what helps me to do that. And I'm sure that's part of why you do this as well. Am I right?
It's become necessary. Let's put it that way. It's become necessary because in kind of my immediate social circle, right? In my mainstream circle, I feel like I'm always for wanting. I'm not satiated by kind of the peripheral conversations. I don't care about the car that you bought or like the vacation that you went on and what you ate. I don't care. And I don't want to generalize, but that doesn't get me there. So absolutely. I mean, these conversations are really becoming crucial, essential to, my life. It's a real component for sure.
That's interesting, isn't it? So there's this whole element now in our lives where we're looking for the sorts of connections and interactions that really meet us where we are now. And sometimes we have to go out and do mad things like do a podcast or to guest on a podcast I listen to podcasts for that as well, because there are people where I'm listening to them thinking, yes,
Right.
God, someone's saying it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Well, I hope that you do manage to draw towards you more people that you can actually hang out with who are
Thank you.
more the right kind. You know, I think that's something we all want. What's that beeping noise?
I don't hear beeping.
Oh, I know what it is. It's my uninterrupted power supply unit,
There you go.
which means that
I thought it was that broken cooker we were speaking to earlier.
no, that's in my friend's house. And that's dead. It's not making any noise at all.
Okay, got it.
Oh, it's just in the corner weeping softly. No, I've got this. So what this means is the power's just gone off in my entire house.
Oh,
The uninterrupted power supply will keep it going
gotcha.
for 5 or 10 minutes. And if it hasn't,
Are we gonna cut off in 5-10 minutes?
only if the power hasn't come back on by then.
Okay. You have to love England.
I
You
know.
have to love England. I have a friend in England. He's telling me about air conditioning there. I'm just kind of like, I have, look, you could try to legitimize it all you want. I'm not buying into that, situation.
What, you mean that we don't have air conditioning over here?
Effectively, you don't have air conditioning.
No, we do
it's a
not have-
crazy concept. Yeah, it's crazy.
Mind you, it's only hot enough for air conditioning about 3 weeks of the year.
That's kind of well, that was the pitch. And I'm kind of like, listen, I don't care if it's, a month is enough to have air conditioning. And then, he tried to pitch me on an HVAC company in England. I said, okay, I got to go now. It's funny. It's a funny conversation.
Well, I'm in Wales and it's even worse in Wales. So hopefully we will not be cut off. But if we are, then we'll just come back in when the power comes back on. So, so that was a little aside. What was the purpose of that little aside, I wonder? Yeah, real life. Real life happens. So how is it for you in real life? Okay, so you're doing all this amazing high-flowing stuff, your podcast, and you've had this incredible transition. Tell me a little bit about real life for you. What is your life like at the moment? What are you up to? How are you spending your time?
Yeah. So my real life, I think I think again that I'm in a transition stage right now where I'm really trying to um, find footing and a life in these pursuits. Right. I started a podcast, the Evolved Podcast. I have about 19 episodes. I started about 6 months ago. I write it, I produce it. I host it, obviously. I wrote a book, and I'm trying to, on the back of the book, I'm going to be trying to, book speaking engagements and other sort of podcast type platforms where I can where I'm able to sustain my life and support myself through this effort. Because at the end of the day, life is really about, well, obviously, that I believe this, but life isn't about accumulation and extraction. And, this way of thinking, I believe, is so old school and so, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Primitive. And this is not a way to live life. I think that it's essential to find something that you truly enjoy doing, even if you're not able to extract the most amount of money. And in fact, to kind of get back or to speak to a lot of what I talk about, the capitalist system inherently is a system that is based on kind of profit at all cost, where the end is justified regardless, as long as you make that money. It doesn't matter what it runs over in its way. Capital is king. If you have to, if you have to deforest and destroy an ecosystem, it doesn't matter, as long as the company or the corporation increase their margins or their profit revenue, if you will, for that quarter or for that 2-year period. I mean, whatever metric you want to look at, right? So this, in my opinion, is the old way. And it's really about, a large part of my effort is taking a kind of a spiritual light versus dark understanding of our lives and applying that to the practical world, right? And explaining to people that, it's great to meditate and transcend planes of consciousness. It's great to do these things where you're touching into an astral plane, or however you want to go into those inquiries, if you will. But people miss the connection on their day-to-day. They don't see the application in their everyday actions. And this is really where I'm surgically focused, because I think that if you can get people to gain that perspective and recognize that it is so ever present, and that it is not in some different plane of experience, and that these topics resonate and are, and I'm not, this isn't like a, kind of applicable, and like, if you look at it this way with these caveats, and I mean, it is a one-to-one correlation situation, right? And this has really been my effort, because I think that, I know that people don't see the full picture, and I feel like I've been given certain gifts to impart that knowledge and that perspective, to allow people to access these topics in their daily lives. So to that end, I'm looking to find ways to structure my life as well, fully integrated into this new way of being and evolved consciousness, if you will.
Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to kind of get my head around exactly what you're sort of saying there. So is part of what you're saying about detaching from being overly materialistic in our lives?
Sure. Yeah. Or just, even having a proper value system, right? Where, people buy a $10 t-shirt from Zara or from one of these, cheap companies, but they have to ignore the fact that it's made in sweatshops in Bangladesh, right? They block it out. It's not a consideration. People are willing to work half of their waking hours during a week, and they ignore the fact that there could be another way to live life. It's not necessarily just about accumulation or competition, right? So it's coming to these realizations, and it's understanding the give and take. It's understanding that the structure that we've been indoctrinated within is not an organic structure, right? It derived from places, it derived from ideology, and it's about understanding where that infrastructure was built, why it was built, and then giving people an aha moment and saying, maybe I don't want to be working 80 hours a week to accumulate money at a job I hate. Maybe I don't want to be sacrificing my morals and values, which, whether people realize it or not, will erode them on a soul level or a spiritual level sometime down the line, right? So it's about considering and understanding, gaining perspective, so that they can have obviously more knowledge through truth, but also to improve their life spiritually, and for many other reasons. And this is part of, yeah. So
Yeah. Great. So it's about understanding better the conditions that we're in such a way that we can realize we don't have to conform to the ways of doing it that seem to be what we're expected to do, but instead switching to follow what we actually believe in, our actual true values, what actually matters to us.
or even just the natural, the natural rhythm of yourself, of what you believe in or feel, or how you want to live. People push that aside because it's not practical. They're not able to perform. They're not able to be accepted by an economy or attain material goods in their life. But in truth, and this is going to sound extreme, but in truth, if I lost all of my money and any ability to work, I would be okay, because I know that that's not important, and we will pass from this life, and you don't take anything with you, right? It's important to realize that it's just we're not here. We're here for such a short period of time, and it's certainly not about accumulating a big pile of gold. It's certainly not about that, right? It's so obvious to me, but not to the majority.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. And so I can see completely why that completely fits with this whole idea of looking for the truth within, because everything you're saying there keeps coming back to that, doesn't it? You're not looking for the truth in the structures. You're not looking for the truth in what everyone expects from you. You're not looking for the truth in the religions, in the this or that, or in materialism or any of those things. Coming back to yourself. And I think also it's very interesting as well, because the way I totally get that you can only talk about it in the way you're talking about it because of your familiarity with the money systems and the way all of that works. And
Sure.
because a lot of people who talk about this sort of thing know nothing about making things work in the physical world. Anyone listening, I'm not talking about you. I mean, there are people, who talk about the spiritual stuff who've never actually, still living in their parents' basement or something, or who've never actually made things work in the physical world. And
Sure. And there's a real, there's a real one-to-one spiritual application to this stuff. And there's a real connection. Just as a quick example, right? If we talk about sort of inherited beliefs that are accepted as divine, if you will, right? If you look at the education system in the United States, right? The K through 12 system where you must achieve, a grade, and you are valued based on your achievement. And then you are then pushed into this ecosystem of performance where you make money, and then that's valued, right? This was derived directly from the Prussian model and implemented by industrialists at the turn of the 20th century. I mean, this was a conscious effort to create really docile workers to accommodate the industrial effort at the turn of the century. Now, one would think that this is relevant to understanding that their ideology, their sense of self, in truth, was manufactured, and that, in my opinion, to not question that or to care about that is so almost otherworldly. I mean, how can you be okay with just being fed a narrative? And I mean, even more extreme, to know that your entire, your ideals were, were created to serve an industrial economy. I mean, this is an essential, fact that everyone should care about, but they don't, right? They assume, again, that this is just the way to live life, and that there's no reason. So it's kind of, it's understanding the origins, and then it's understanding how those origin stories impact so many things. When you live in a capitalist society, the people, especially in the extreme nature that we're in the United States, and in my belief, it's not really an actual capitalist, it's really a corrupted capitalist system. But the individual, humankind's values are derived directly from that system because of how pervasive it is, right? So these aren't like organic or universal, cosmic, if you will, beliefs and values. They are in many ways an inversion, right? You must actually accommodate these values because economy, and it's the capital that has created these ideologies. But people, again, are not aware of it. They're unconscious. They operate through illusion, and they don't look inside because they're constantly distracted and constantly looking for meaning and gratification in the external, which is a flaw.
Yeah, sad but true. I'm very glad you said it's actually corrupted capitalism, because
For sure.
I personally, I think sometimes people use the word capitalism to mean something that is not actually pure capitalism. It's what you're all saying, the corrupted capitalism. So I think that's a useful distinction, very useful distinction.
Yeah, and look, capitalism can have many forms. I mean, we can have, I write about in my book, Sacred Economy. There are many ways to create capitalist models, economic models, where you have a focus on the individual, on humanity, on the soul, on regenerative models, right, of economics. With banking systems, I mean, the system of interest was always inherently looked upon as evil, right? This is the entire, at least money-based system. It's a credit-based system where you print money based on, credit. So we are so inverted, and we are really fighting a schism-based reality where we have to suppress an entire part of ourselves. And if we look at, a big theme, and this is really thematic over civilizations, over thousands of years, is the idea of the masculine versus the feminine. And the feminine has been so suppressed across, and it was done methodically. It was done for reasons, especially with, you look at the origin truly with religion, where you had these patriarchal structures that took form, and and for many reasons, this is a no religion, no religion, even the Eastern ones, even these Eastern philosophies are immune from this story. But with that system, what you get is when you suppress the sacred feminine, when you suppress, that part of you, obviously it creates it makes it much easier to control society. But when you have a materialist only understanding of the world, of science, of yourself, right, where you must access the divine through a third party institution, right, kiss the ring this is such an inversion, because in truth, the divine is inside of all of us. Some might say that I believe this, we are the divine, right? Experiencing itself or ourselves in this realm. This is more of a reality than the narratives that you've been fed by religions. And this paradigm, the suppression of the feminine, persisted and moved into the way that we structured systems, especially in the West, where you had this idea again of materialism, of not just consumption based, but of understanding our world. And it originated in many cases with these religious institutions. So anyway, I don't want to get to, but it's an important piece of information that people again don't realize, and has created the consciousness that we are living in today.
So how thick is your book? Because the number of topics, right, that you've connected into.
I cover a lot, and I think that it's important to make people realize that so many things are connected. And I don't think people do. I don't think people can make that connection. And it's not just with kind of like making these outlandish, really disconnected connections. These are documented. I really try to stay to facts, where you can point to things that took place that are documented, and stay away from kind of fringe ideas that are hard to nail down, whether I believe that they're correct or otherwise. But if you can't really nail it down, I think that it takes away. So it's important for me to explain how the connection between religious order and morphed into our economic systems, our education systems, our medical systems. I mean, we the entire nature of our systems in the United States are derived from this material based capitalist model, where you have to buy your health, where you must take a pill to suppress symptoms for the rest of your life. I mean, this is such an inversion, such a strange way to accept health and healing, especially when historically there were so many holistic and natural remedies that were even more effective and that actually cured things, right? So, but people don't understand because they haven't looked into it, or they don't care, or they're too busy. So it's about bringing these topics to light and giving people a new framework to understand not only the world but themselves. Because again, in a practical standpoint, we are all interconnected, not just with individuals and the earth, but also with the systems within which we operate. There is really, and I can talk about this on an ecological, on a biological, on a spiritual, but again, just look at the facts. It's so obvious, yet the illusion of separation, which is really how I kind of start my book, is such an important, pervasive idea here, which begins the contortion, which begins the illusory structure of a big part of our world.
Yeah. Amazing. So how can people, because I'm thinking, I'm listening to you and I'm feeling like, if I had a lot of access to you, we could have some great conversations, and I would actually learn and expand aspects of myself. That would be helpful. And now I consider myself to be someone who has explored a lot of these ideas already. Okay, so if we take somebody who hasn't perhaps explored a lot of these ideas, who has already explored a few of them, how do they get to benefit from this understanding and integration that you've got? Obviously, they can get your book, they can listen to your podcast. Are there other ways in which they can benefit from what you're doing at the moment?
Are you saying as far as, what the end result is, or what what they can take away from these kind of explorations and new perspectives? Is that kind of what the question
I mean,
is?
are there other ways that they can interact with you? Are you
Oh, understood.
doing kind of coaching work, or are you running?
Yeah. So look, this is again, as I kind of grow this effort and look to expand, I'm looking to use my book as kind of a platform to begin, embarking on speaking engagements uh, through either a coaching or a consultative basis. But I'm really kind of at the beginning of figuring out different ways, because I think that that's an important part of it. Everybody can kind of sit behind a screen or sit behind a book and kind of do your podcast and do your thing, but at least I know that I have a need to engage, and that's kind of, I think, going to be the next effort for me and platform. So that I would say is the next step here.
Fantastic. Well, I hope I'll be able to persuade you to come back on the show and tell us all
I
about
would
that.
love to. I would
You
love
know,
to.
because I think that, you've obviously come to all of this through many years of experience and exploring and doing the hard work, the hard mining, the data mining in all sorts of areas. And
Not necessarily fun, but
totally,
if I can help people bypass that process, I'm doing something good.
well, or at least, as you say, it can be a bit of a shock to the system when we start to wake up to certain things. And sometimes having a really great companion in some capacity who's been there and who hasn't become a Debbie Downer, as you put it, it just makes all the difference. Because this whole energy that you have says, yes, I've been through that. Yes, sometimes it was really hell, right? And I'm still cool. I'm cool with it.
But it's better on the other side. That's all I have to say. It's way better on the other side, because you're living in truth. You're seeing the world in its essence and truthfully, and you're living with yourself truthfully. You're not sacrificing yourself or living unconsciously. It's a way better way to live your life. That's all I can say. So it's not, getting to the other side, may be difficult, and hopefully I can shorten that process for people. But once you get there, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be, but it's just a way better way to live. There's no question about it.
No, it will shorten the process for people, because when something's pre-digested to some extent, it helps someone to recognize the avenues they don't need to bother to go down, and the avenues that are worth it. I think it does help in that regard. So I'm just going to switch gears slightly.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in the world at the moment. We could definitely say is interesting, at the very least. And there's a lot of people who are trying to be part of the solution, whether they are leaders, teachers, parents, people trying to have some sovereignty in their own lives. And some of those people are listening to us at the moment. And some of them might be thinking, well, okay, he did a 10-year transition after already having X number of years of awareness and blah, 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 blah. Where the hell do I start? And how can I, in trying to be part of the solution, how can I connect with some of what Erin's been talking about today? So what would you like to say to those people?
I think that it starts on a step-by-step basis. This is again, people need to look at this as a journey, and it's not about and this is with everything, where it's not about getting there and then saying, okay, I'm here. I'm at the top of Everest, yay. It's just not what it's about. It's about, it's important to embrace that journey and embrace that climb. There are certain parts of it, again, that will be difficult, that will challenge you. But if I can help circumvent some of those, difficult steps, then I'm doing. I think I'm doing my job, and I'm of service. But I think that it's important for people to begin small. And again, we can go back to this theme of looking internally for truth and trusting things like intuition and things like feeling and things like, kind of recognizing on a very basic level that we are spiritual beings existing in a material realm, not the other way around, which is, again, I can go into literally scientific data showing this with respect to physics. I mean, it's just the way it is, sorry, no offense, it's just the way it is. So even starting at just a small level and saying, you know, looking at yourself differently, accepting things about yourself, and then going about your life differently, looking at people not as enemies, or not as something, or not as somebody that I can extract value from, right? Looking at them in many ways, and this is getting a little bit kind of out there, but this again is the reality, looking at them as part of who you are, because we are connected. Looking at somebody not as kind of this physical structure and being hypnotized by, how sexy a girl is, or how structured a man's jawline is. I mean, cool, that's great, but look at somebody as, more of a field of energy. Look at how they are expressing things. I mean, these are basic steps, but this is really the beginning architecture of how you can start transitioning into a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of awareness. Obviously, meditative practices, in my opinion, are essential to kind of the beginning stages of this effort. It allows you to, if for nothing more, to sit and contemplate and just to feel yourself. People are so distracted that they never get a chance to just, feel themselves and feel the pulse of their body, the rhythm of their body. I think that meditation should be kind of like part of, school curriculum, if you will, or like part of the routine. You wake up in the morning and you meditate for 5-10 minutes before you brush your teeth. I mean, these were practices that were part of the daily life, millennia ago. And we haven't, this is nothing, we haven't evolved past that because now we figured a better way to live life. We are now in many, many ways in a far darker time than we were historically. I have a podcast on this talking about, the sort of de-evolution of humanity and what we placed as most important with technology and the disconnect between mental health and our other advancements and how we've evolved. So not to get too off topic, but it's about the small steps. It's about the small realizations, and it's about building on those and seeing different ways to incorporate this kind of new paradigm and structure of thinking into your daily life and how you interact.
Beautiful. Thank you. So we've talked about a lot today, Aaron, and has there been for you a favorite part of our conversation today?
All of it. You're lovely. I really enjoyed all of it. No, I think that I think you can tell I'm really passionate about these topics, and I'm really kind of a cheerleader for humanity. I think that we are such, forget about these ideas of like top of the food chain. We are such unique, divine, powerful, special creatures. I mean, we are living, in these kind of two planes. We have such an ability to have such a great experience here. Whether you want to look at this as kind of like a school where you must overcome and your soul must evolve. I mean, however you want to look at it, but we have such an ability to live such a different reality. And these kind of conversations and these efforts that allow me to provide knowledge and insight and perspective are really just kind of for me what it's all about. And I just truly enjoy, partaking in this. So
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's remind people where they can find you, which is...
Yes, you can find me on my podcast, The Evolved Podcast. It streams across all platforms, all major platforms. Again, my book, which is being released imminently, The Architecture of Awakening. You can find me there. And on the back of my book launch, I look to begin my world tour with speaking engagements and the like. So you can find me there.
Fantastic. And also the website?
Yes, the website,
The
theaaronscott.com. Yes.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, do let me know if you're coming anywhere near rural Wales, which would surprise me because it's mostly sheep. But
I actually may be on a trip to Kent, which I know is not right there, but this summer. But we'll see. We'll be in touch.
we'll definitely be in touch, 100%. So, final thing, if you'd like to, is because there's a week now until the next guest episode airs. So I like to give the listeners something. Do you have some sort of reflection question or contemplation question that you'd like to leave with the listeners that they can work with over the coming week?
I have so many, but in
Of course you do.
in an effort to save time, I would say my question is this. My question to listeners to kind of invoke curiosity is, are you happy with your life? And what are the things that you're not happy about? And what can you do to start kind of chipping away at that unhappiness and aligning with those things that truly make you happy and that will allow you to grow? That is kind of where I would leave things with the audience to kind of, as a step. This sort of reflection, this kind of inquiry, I think is where you begin to pierce the veil and you begin to awaken.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for watching and listening. Please give us a thumbs up. Please give us a 5-star rating. You can find other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Share with your friends. And if you're watching this on a video channel, please do comment on what we were discussing today. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. And thank you again to Aaron Scott. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.